All right. Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday to you. Pray that you have enjoyed a little sunshine today. I know with some storms earlier, and we're supposed to get some storms later on as well. Right now, the sun is shining. And it felt pretty good, except for the breeze. I felt pretty good out there today. How you feeling today, my queen?
I'm doing wonderful, my king. Can I just say, that I like that intro. I like that new intro.
You like the new intro?
I
Took a bit.
like the new intro, and I really like the music. So shout out to Dead Dream. That was nice. That was a nice way to open up your 100th episode. Yay!
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. I spent a little bit of time putting it together. I try to do it every year. Um, So yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't do like a big to do with flights and all that, and streamers and everything. This being 100, but maybe we'll see what happens at 150 or 200. We'll see. We'll see.
Yes,
Um,
we all know how much you like, the Big Bang and the streamers and all that stuff. So this
no,
is it. Happy 100th episode. Yeah, that's you. You're like, yeah, okay, no big deal. I don't think you were even going to say much
I
until
wasn't.
saying.
Uh,
I kept saying you have 100th episode coming up.
yeah, I mean, I recognize it. I appreciate it. I really do, and I really do want to say thank you to everyone that has been there from the very beginning. Those that have come along the way. It's because of you that I keep doing it. Uh, there's those that have been there from the beginning. I mean, of course, I can see my mom is on right now.
Hi, mom.
Hey, mom, love you. Ty, my cousin, y'all done seen her a couple times. She's actually in the intro.
She
Um,
is. Hey, Ty.
and people like Michelle, she just came on as well. You know,
Hey,
there's
Michelle.
been different ones. Brother Johnson, I know if he isn't on already, he'll be checking in. There's so many. I don't want to start naming names because then I definitely will get in trouble. Um, but there's a lot of you all that kind of been with me from the very beginning. And of course, I gotta thank you, my love, for being support and backbone and all that as well. But
Thank you.
yeah, it's been a journey. It's been fun, and I'm just looking forward to what the Lord has for us this coming year to see how He wants to use it and what kind of conversations He's going to bring our way as
I know
well.
I've said it before, but you make this look easy. This is my, let me see, third time co hosting. I got one more week. I know I said I would do this, and then I'm supporting my man. But can I tell you, this is not easy. I'm out of my comfort zone. I am so nervous. Next week is my last week. Thank you, Jesus. And then I go back to
It's not
supporting
that
you
bad.
in
I
the
hope it ain't been that
background
bad.
where I am most comfortable. So you make this look very easy. I know I've seen you prepare. I see what you do to prepare each week, but now actually being taking a more active role in your preparations, I'm like, this is a lot. And you're going strong, and you already claiming episode 150, 200. You go on and claim it,
Just
King. Go
because it
ahead.
sound good. I'm a labor before the Lord um, to see what He says. I honestly that's all I can do. I just want to make sure I stay within as well. When I first started, He impressed on me at least 3 years, so that's what I'm committed to doing. At least three. And if He tells me to re up another three, I'll re up another three. Um, but I'll go as long as the Lord tells me, or until He calls me to do something else. So I truly appreciate what has happened because anybody that knows me intimately knows that uh, I'm out of my comfort zone here as well. It's not like I'm an extrovert. It's not like I like to be front stage and front and center and things like that. But I have enjoyed having conversations. This is something that I've always liked. I've always liked doing apologetics and things like that as well. Hey, Pastor Rosen, Anthony, thank you for joining. I
Hey,
appreciate you coming as well. I see some congratulations in the comments as well. Elston, my brother, how you doing, man? Appreciate you too. Elston, he was in the opener as well. I try to get everybody that kind of almost everybody. I can't get everybody, but I try to get people that have visited us over the past year every year in the little clip. So maybe I'll show it again at the end as a way of saying thank you again. But for everybody that came on and have shared wisdom, have shared knowledge, you know, giving blessings, all of that. I truly appreciate it. Um, I also want to say thank you as well. I had the opportunity to go on to Elevation Global media this morning with Sister Cassandra, Deaconess Cassandra Ferguson, and we talked to a missionary from the Ukraine, um, Sergey, and I can't remember John. I'm not going to mess up his name. Sergey. He heads up Mission Eurasia. He's the president of that organization, and he had a lot to tell us about, what goes on in the Ukraine, what's going on with our Christian brothers and sisters over there. So, if you guys, I heard the other night that Monday's a slow night for TV. So when you leave our conversation, why don't you go over there to Global Media and check out their Maintain Monday for today, and maybe you'll be able to help, or the Lord will give you some inspiration on how to help our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine as
That
well.
was a
So.
wonderful. That was a wonderful episode that the two of you did today, and shout out to Deaconess Cassandra Ferguson and
Mhm.
the group over there at Elevation Media. They're doing wonderful things. So,
And I just see that she signed on as well. So hey, Cassandra, thank you again. Me, I only keep calling
hey,
you Deacon because I told her I hope she wasn't gonna be calling me minister the whole time I was on it, and she did well with not calling me minister. Um, but yeah, definitely I love her. The opportunity that she presented to us as well. So it's just been a wonderful day for me. It just goes to show how something small like my little broadcast podcast vlog, if you will. Um, has allowed me to reach different people, not just here, but on other platforms as well. Being able to talk to atheists and things like that. That I really do feel that the Lord has blessed us in a mighty, mighty way. Okay.
okay.
All righty. Well, with that being said, um, you know, and it's something that kind of came up this morning when I was talking with Cassandra, that there's been a lot of things happening this past weekend. There's been not just this past weekend, but just in the world in general, there's been a lot of violence and there's been some mass shootings. And I just want to give y'all just a little bit of information. I talked about violence before in the past, and how it can be very distressing. Um, and then, of course, you got the Ukraine war going on as well. And it was something that Felicia, she's actually come to me and talked about, how she gets nervous sometimes, rightfully so, when she's not always comfortable, and she gets concerned, and rightfully so. Because I also get concerned. I don't think maybe because of me being naive, I don't necessarily feel threatened when I'm out, but at the same time, I'm aware that things could happen at any given time. And what happened in Buffalo is proof of that. Um, so I did get a little bit of information that I wanted to share, um, and for us to talk about as well. But if you hadn't seen it, or if you haven't heard about it, it was what was talked about all this morning on the news. Was in Buffalo. An 18-year-old male went into a grocery store. Tops, I believe, is what it was called. Killed 10 people, injured 3 others. Okay, and it appears that it was definitely race motivated.
It
Um,
was.
he wrote a manifesto. I just found out maybe a half hour ago. It was a piece I didn't hear about on the news. My daughter was saying that evidently he was tweeting or
Mm-hmm.
streaming while he was shooting, which is crazy to me. Which so you know our
He
our, our
he.
city, our country, um, it's in dire straits. It's in dire straits. There's this spirit of evil
Mm,
that has come across, and a spirit of violence that comes along with that evil that's seems to be spilling over, and sometimes even feels like overtaking our land. Um, and it's something that I kind of want to talk about. And just so you know, mass shootings, if there's a shooting of 4 more people,
mhm,
whether they're killed or not, and those one of those 4 people is not the shooter themselves, it's considered to be a mass shooting.
mhm.
Um, And thus far, just this far in the year, there's already been 198 mass shootings in the United States.
Mhm.
198. Um, and
And
then
five this past weekend. Buffalo was only one.
it was
So
5 over the weekend. You're
five
right.
over the weekend, mass shootings, meaning according to CNN, 4 people or more were injured or killed. There was
Hmm.
Milwaukee, where 17 were wounded. There was Orange County, California, where the man, that one hurt my heart. All of them hurt my heart. But this one, he opened fire at a church picnic,
Right.
and the pastor took help to take him down along with other people at the picnic. Then there was
Right.
Winston-Salem, 7 people were wounded, and then there were 2 more shootings in Texas. This is all over the weekend.
Just this weekend, just past weekend. So, and what's disturbing is there's this trend that's happening because in 2019 there were 417 total. Okay, in 2020 there's 611, and then in 2021 there were 693. Okay, and these are all within the past 3 years. Okay, and now we're already at 198 for this year. So, I would think that with the pandemic, people were indoors or should have been indoors. You know, that it should have curved a little, that people shouldn't have been around one another to the point where, you know, we were getting on each other's nerves. And I didn't have the time to really look up to see if these numbers reflected like domestic violence or domestic mass shootings, within families, things like that. I know that type of thing happens, but it's a disturbing trend that I'm concerned with, that it's just going to continue to get worse unless we start to do something different. Okay. And I'm not just saying Christians, I'm just saying we as human beings, we as citizens of the United States, because this is something that's kind of unique to the United States. There are other countries that, they allow guns and things like that, but they don't have the same numbers we have. There's something going on within our land that's unlike anything else, or other places. You know what I mean? Um, to say nothing, and for a while, I just get tired of hearing about Baltimore, hearing the headlines every morning about Baltimore. You know,
And that
um,
shooting with the lady that was pregnant, and the gentleman in the car, where
yeah,
it was just open fire. I think it was, I want to say Friday. It was on Friday. And then she was pregnant, and they delivered the baby, thankfully, at Johns Hopkins. I think the baby is still in critical condition. But I mean, what bothers me is how can people have so much hate
yeah,
in their heart?
yeah,
That's the thing. Going back to the gentleman in Buffalo, they said he drove from New York down to that Tops, and that he targeted that neighborhood because it was a predominantly Black neighborhood. Um, and this 18-year-old posted his manifesto, I want to say a day or two before he actually did it. So, I mean, it was known that he had hate in his heart. Also, I forgot, there was a threat. He made a threat against his own high school in 2021. So, not only that, he now has a history. Thankfully, I don't think that came to pass, but he was talking about it back then in 2021 against his high school. And now he's targeting Black neighborhoods. I don't understand how someone can have that much hate in their
yeah.
heart and that much disregard for life.
Well, I think, and that's kind of what the topic kind of has to be, is what are we teaching our children? You know, there's this big uprising the past year or so where they don't want to have critical race theory taught in school, um, but yet they seem to be able to hear about uh, replacement theory. You
Replacement
know,
theory. That's
where
what he was
where
thinking about.
yeah, and that's what he was into. So they're getting information from somewhere. Somebody is teaching our children something, and unfortunately, it's not always the positive. Unfortunately, it's not something that should be considered to be desirable. You know, um, I don't know. I try to think back to when I was a child, and growing up, I was born mid to late '60s. It was the tail end of the civil rights movement and things like that. Not that the movement
You
has
old,
ever stopped. Whatever, you ain't that far behind.
but I'm
Um,
behind you.
you ain't that far behind. Um, but we were taught, certain things, judge people by their character, not the color of their skin, and things like that, and respect everyone, even if they're not always respectful, and things like that. Those are the things that was instilled in me, and I believe the same thing for you and for many of us. Um, and again, I could be naive. I think for many African Americans, that's what we were taught back then, because that's how we wanted to be treated. So if we were to follow Martin Luther King, the thought was, well, if you show them how to be kind, people will be kind. If you turn the other cheek, they won't strike the other, and all those other things. So, or they may strike the other, but you gotta just continue. Then you had the opposing thought of, like your Malcolm X's, by any means necessary, we're going to get what we deserve. We're going to get the justice that has been withheld from us. you know so I mean, we had those opposing views, but in the end it was all about us being treated equally. And as I was listening to the news this morning, many of the commentators were saying it's just kind of hard to believe that here we are in 2022, and things as atrocious as this, as evil as this, is happening because of race. And that's just so disheartening,
It is.
especially from a young man. I would almost think I could almost accept it more if it was someone in their 60s and 70s, because they grew up in a time where that kind of thought was prevalent. But in a young man that's 18,
Yeah,
that that's
I see your
that's
point.
that's kind of hard.
It is hard, and another thing that's hard is we always hear about gun control, right? So
Hmm.
um, I'm hoping I'm using the right terminology. I think I am, but I think what I heard was he had a high capacity magazine, which is illegal.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
did he get that?
Yeah.
How are these guns, how are these weapons getting into the hands of 18-year-olds? Where's the gun control? And I get it. You can get anything off the street. I get it, but
See, nowadays you can get it off the web. You can buy the individual pieces and put it together yourself at home.
why wasn't someone following this 18-year-old? Why wasn't someone, he put a threat out against his high school? Where was the monitoring of his activity? And he was
Hmm.
bold about it. Like I said, Savannah said he streamed, but then at the same time he posted something, a day or two before. I want to say the manifesto he posted.
Right.
He was bold about it. Where was the monitoring? Where was the policing of everything, before he got to Tops?
Yeah. Well,
I
I think
don't
because
understand.
I think because of the company he kept, must have thought that his thinking was right. You know, he must have thought that
Did
that's
they
how everybody feels, that's his persuasion, that's
and they
his
didn't
culture.
think that his threat was real?
I don't know. But you raise a good question. Well, several, because again, it wasn't like there wasn't an issue of mental health prior to, so he should have been on some type of watch list. I agree. It shouldn't have gotten that far. Um, but then you brought up another point, and listen, y'all, would love to hear y'all. Be sure to send some comments, put some comments in. Um, Sherry says, "Hey Sherry, nice to see you, Lady Rosen." Uh, the news said that he drove to PA to get the ammunition. Okay, so I
I
mean,
did
going
hear that.
across state lines and all that, it was well thought out. It was planned. But something else that a lot of people, there's a misconception that, well, these individuals that do this, they must all have mental health issues, and there's um, some type of sickness or something like that. And that's not always necessarily true. You know, it takes time. I mean, to think about it, he knew that he had to plan out to go to PA. He had to plan out and figure out, well, where do I want to go? Where is there going to be a black population?
He,
Especially
like I
since he
said,
didn't live in that,
he
he didn't
picked
live in
that
that
area.
town. So
Hmm.
he staked it out. This was planned out. It wasn't just something spare of the moment,
No.
you know.
And
So
I
it's
think
not
he was
that.
there the day before. There were reports of him being there a lot during the day before. And people said, we saw him here the day before. And I think he was, interacting with people. So very, very devious, very evil. Um, that's one. So, okay. So I really don't even want to give him any more.
Oh, and I
What
understand
I
that as
mean,
well.
but
Um,
but I will say this: what kind of world are we living in that we can't even go to the grocery store and get groceries and without fear for our lives, or go to a church picnic without fear for our lives? That's
mm,
where I want to go. What do we do? What
yeah.
can we do?
I mean, or
Because
just walk
it,
down the
it, it's
street.
I know
Just walk down the street. Pregnant.
sometimes sitting in your own house.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the I really do feel like that there's a spirit that has been unleashed within our country of violence and evil that hasn't been present like this before. Um, and I do want to just go back to one other thing you mentioned about the whole gun thing.
Mhm.
I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that we should be able to bear arms, but I also believe that there should be some type of responsibility that goes along with that. There should be some checks and balances that go along with that. And it seems to me that that just isn't happening. Um, and for whatever reason, and we know what the reason is, because of money, Congress does not want to tackle this whole issue of gun control. They just, and I've heard it time and time again, until the right people get killed, it's not going to change. Because when you really think about most of the mass shootings, most of them are um, race driven or hate crimes. I remember, was it a couple of years ago, there was a club that got shot up in Florida. I think it was
Mhm.
Florida, and it was
Mhm.
all it was like a gay club. Um, so that was based on hate.
Mhm.
Buffalo was based on hate. It's like anything where there's these massive things happening, it's really driven by hate. And you kind of started with, why have we actually gotten to this point where it's so much hate?
There's so much hate. People have so much hate in their hearts. I just don't understand. And it's increasing. And it's not just nationwide, as we said, it's also within our community. So I just don't understand how someone who's only been on this earth for 18 years can have so much hate in their heart, that the only way that they feel they can get justice, and they can or I don't even know what it is, get justice, or they can vent their anger, or I don't understand. But the only way they can deal with the hate in their heart is to go out and shoot people randomly at a grocery store.
And I'm sitting here thinking, I think if anything, this is the reason why lessons like um, critical race theory is important, because when you don't hear the truth, when in you're only hearing one side of things, you start
Mhm.
to think that that one side is the only side, and that it's right, it's the end all be all. And that can be very, very dangerous. That can be very, very dangerous. So I really do believe that we need to do a better with what we call the lost generation. We have to do better with training and teaching the generation that follows us. I'm often surprised, and I may have said this before on another broadcast, that you can talk to some young people and they have no idea what the 60s and even the 70s was about, and the movement that it took for them to get to where they're at, you know, and the sacrifices that were made. They aren't able to connect with it. Okay, for whatever reason.
And talking about how we teach our youth, was this a 18-year-old? Did anybody go back and teach him after he made that threat against his high school? I wonder what type of counseling or resources or help was offered to him, because that was the time to do it. That was the time to do it. What was done? You know, it's probably going to come out in the days to come. But I'm just saying that was a perfect opportunity. You had a troubled youth that was talking about shooting up his high school. Where was the resources? I'm wondering. I mean, I'm assuming, but maybe I shouldn't. I'm assuming that he really didn't get the resources that he needed, but maybe he did, and maybe it is a mental issue. I don't know. I haven't
I
heard
don't know.
anything about that, but it's just it's a question.
I mean, it's really a multifaceted problem. So by no means do I expect that we'll be able to fix it tonight alone. Um,
We just pray for those families. Can you imagine? You know, you have a family member that goes to the grocery store to get dinner. It was Saturday, so probably getting stuff for their Sunday dinner, and that's it. I just can't imagine, you know, the families. And that's where my heart goes out to, praying for those families that were left behind in the tragedy of it. You know, so and so went to church picnic and didn't, you know, went to church, went to a picnic and didn't come back. I
yeah,
just pray for
yeah,
those families. That's all I can say.
yeah. And in that case, it did not seem to be a hate crime because it was an Asian person, Asian older man that did this within his same community. So
Mhm.
um, I'm always a little careful not to put race on everything, but at the same time, you can't ignore when things are happening over and over again. You just can't do it. Um, Again, love to see your comments, y'all. Thank y'all so much for
Did
joining
you put
tonight.
one up? Oh yeah, I was gonna say I thought something was coming up from Nicole.
Um,
And tell the right. Oh, I meant to say that. Thank you, Nicole. I meant to talk about that. Who are the right people? When you said until the right people are killed. Thank you, Nicole. Who are the right people? Let's talk about that. There, to me, there is no right or wrong people. People are people. But can you expound upon that, King? What do
see,
you mean the right
you
people?
trying to get me in trouble. Um,
I'm keeping it real.
um, so until there's a group that is a particular persuasion. So if you took that R out of the right and made it a W, until you get a particular group that has been threatened. And honestly, I can't even really say that anymore. I don't know. So many things happens. You know, you think back to January 6th, you think about the insurrection on the Capitol and all that. You would think, well, we need to start doing something. We need to start making some changes. But no, here comes more rhetoric. Here comes more grandstanding. Here comes I'm gonna stand with my party no matter what. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
If we weren't, and I can't say we, if there are those who are in power who weren't ready to make a change and stand up for what's right in that moment, I don't know if they will stand when they know that gun violence is an issue, but their pockets are still being lined. You know, if they are going to say, yeah, we need to make some changes to the gun laws and we don't care about what, you know, those gun manufacturers say, how much money they're paying and all that. And I guess when I say until the right people are involved or are killed and there's enough of them, it's not until that point that we're going to actually see some changes from our government or those who represent us in our government that they're going to start making a push. It's just how me keeping it real until it's like with the drug issue, you know, opioids, all that, cocaine. It's been an issue since the 60s and 70s, but until you started seeing certain ones, children dying, you know, it wasn't a epidemic. Now all of a sudden it's an issue because we're starting to see and they're dying alongside us. You know what I mean? And that addiction has no face. Addiction has no color. It has no color. But now because it's become or it's in their communities, it's now
It's an
important.
epidemic.
It's an epidemic. You
Hmm.
know,
Okay.
just
Mm, okay. So I understand where you're coming from with the right people, but what I was thinking when you were talking about that, for some reason, the one thing that popped up in my head, and of course this is very close to me because I'm from Connecticut, but was Sandy Hook when all those little children died, and you heard a lot about gun control in the days after that, months after that. What will happen after this? Will we still hear this thing? You're shaking your head. You don't probably don't even know you're doing that. You're
I
shaking your
mean, but
head.
that's a perfect example. You see little children being pulled out, but that wasn't enough to prick their hearts.
I know.
That wasn't enough to get them to say we need to do something other than what we're doing, because what we're doing isn't working.
What we're doing is not working, and it's not only is it not working, things are getting worse. So my thing is, don't keep doing the same thing expecting different results. You need to change what you're doing because what you're doing is not working.
Um, Holy Christ says, I can't see my screen today for some reason. Reality
Me-
is change doesn't occur until Caucasians are affected or other races. What's that say?
Do something to affect the bottom line in their
Of their
pockets.
pockets. Of their pockets. I got this message on my screen. I can't get it up. That's why I can't see nothing. Um,
That's okay. Your queen got you.
Thank you. I appreciate it because I sure couldn't see. Um, yeah, yeah. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Until again, the right people get shook up enough. I don't know. I've just kind of lost faith in those who are currently in power, and maybe we need to start thinking about this now, as we are approaching midterms. Maybe we need to start thinking about who is really standing for us, who's really in there working for us, who's in our government, local, who is actually doing things for us, who actually have a heart for the people and not just looking for an easy career, you know, being able to vote and not vote when they don't want to vote and not be held accountable, draw a sizable check, but they're not really doing anything for the people. And we got the midterms coming up, and we need to start thinking about that, as that time approaches. We need to start really paying attention and looking at their voting records and how they're handling different issues that affect us directly. You know, um, because until they receive a message that yes, you can be voted out, they're not going to change. I don't believe that to be true. I just don't believe that to be true.
And I always, you know me, I'm wondering, I think I might have said this to you last week. I'm wondering what is it that's got people uh, so irritated. And I said to you, babe, is it that the weather is breaking? You know, it's getting warm. I'm like, it just seems like people are just going off. And sometimes I know it could be something as simple as that. Or when COVID started, people were stressed about COVID. And what is it now in this past weekend, past week, past month, that has people so irritated that the only thing they know how to do is to not cope with it, but go out and shoot people. And this
Mm.
is in our own community. Is it? I mean, really, is it the weather? What is it? I don't get it.
I don't know. I wish it was something as easy as that,
I really
but
don't
it
know.
goes a lot
I mean,
deeper.
I'm lightly joking about the weather because I
Yeah,
swear when
I
it gets hot,
understand.
some people
It
do
goes
it.
it goes so much deeper.
But I'm sure
Um,
it's deeper. What is it?
well, Michelle says, of course, she wasn't going to chime in, but consider how social media platforms have played into this. I have a lot to say about that. And I know what you mean, Michelle. It's not just so much the news, but how different social media platforms allow these bad messages to get out and to
Yeah.
get circulated. And they try to say that they're trying to curb it and all that.
Yeah.
Especially after the whole fiasco with Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Um, but it's still not enough. There's still places that people can go on the web to seek out these dark messages and find communities that they feel are going to agree with them, you know, and connect with how they feel. So I agree with you, Michelle. I think that too is also an issue.
Yeah, it is.
Um,
She's right.
okay. Yes, Sherry, thank you for agreeing. Appreciate you. Sherry says we got to educate our voters, and I think that's the problem. We don't want to educate ourselves. We always want somebody else to do it for us. But we gotta invest into this a
Be
little bit.
active
We
in
got
it.
to be active. We got to be active. Um, hey, Williams says, "What's that say, baby?"
Hate, an entity that has been around since the Old Testament and is equally as prevalent today.
That's good. That's good.
Hmm.
I'm glad you brought up the Old Testament.
Hmm.
Um, Tony Johnson said earlier. He said that he's asked today, why would God allow this type of tragedy to occur, and what could possibly be God's plan for this evil? Okay. Well, I'll say this, and y'all know me. Anytime something uh, perplexes me or bothers me, where I just don't feel like I have an answer, my first go to is the Word of God. You know, and it has yet to let me down when trying to find, or at least give me moments of pause where I can like stop and reflect, even if it just comes to the point of uh, answering the question that was asked of Tony, why would God do this? Understanding that I get to the point of realizing, well, God is sovereign. He does do things or allows things to happen. Okay.
Hmm.
He allows a permissible will, if you will, to take place. He permits our will to have reign for a bit, um, because he knows the final outcome. Even in our decisions, he knows what the final outcome would be. You know, and oftentimes the Word of God will help me in just that. It just reminds me of just who God is. Okay. But I kind of wanted to also frame this a little bit and have us kind of think about this, because we're talking about what's happening here. We got to think about Ukraine, and it just seemed to be kind of timely that I had the opportunity to speak this morning to the Ukrainian missionary, um, about what's going on in Ukraine, and we're talking about local, but globally again, this evil that's taking place, this hate that's taking place in the world. Um, if there's going to be a reckoning, there's going to be a reckoning. And just let me share a couple scriptures with you. It says this. It says in Genesis. It says, "Surely for your lifeblood I will demand a reckoning. From the hand of every beast I will require it, and from the hand of man, from the hand of every man's brother, I will require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the image of God he made man." And simply, what from the very beginning, we're talking about Genesis. From the very beginning, uh, God is saying to us that life is important. And you said at the beginning, it just seems like people, we just don't, not we. There are those who do not care or do not regard life at all. No longer has the respect for life. And I'm not going to go into the whole, you know, abortion that's going on uh,
Overturning.
overturning on Roe versus
Hmm.
Wade and the
Hmm.
justices and all that. That's a different discussion that can be had on another night. But
That's a whole nother podcast.
that's a, yeah, that'd be a whole nother discussion. But um, there are those who do not see life as holy, does not see that God ordained man, okay, that he created man in his own image. And that when we ignore that, we're saying, um, that not only is man not important, but God Himself, from which we were molded and crafted from His image, that He put into us, is not vital. It's not. It's not important. And that's what becomes even more concerning as a believer, is that how we can just throw away those thoughts, and how we can just throw away what God has put forth. You know.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
That's a good
also,
word. I'm just letting you talk
I see you. Um,
because you know I can talk, but you were saying a lot of good things. That's a good word.
um, in Romans, it says this: Romans 14, 10,
You need me
13.
to read that?
Nope, I got it. Um, but why did you judge your brother? Or why did you show contempt for your brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ. So what I said before is there's going to come a reckoning. In Genesis, God is saying, if you do it, if you take it, you understand, I'm gonna require something of you. Okay. Here is saying, and this kind of speaks to the hate piece. Why are we looking at one another with such hate? Why are we judging someone else because of the color of their skin, or the language they use, the culture that they are from? Why do we judge that to be inadequate? Why do we judge that to be less than? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think when we get out of that, um, we'll be in a better place. But I think too often we look at others and we're thinking, we just see the inadequacy of them in those things that we feel are unimportant, and we say, well, we're better than them and we deserve more, and all of that. But here it's saying, I mean, why do we judge each other in such a matter? Okay. Understand that there is no judge other than Jesus Christ, and we got to stand in front of Him at the end. For it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to God. That's what the Word of God tells us. That's what He says to us. Um, and He's the only judge. We ought not to be in a place of judgment. And until that happens, there's always going to be hate. There's always going to be jealousy. There's always going to be jealousy. Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean and that's a perfect scripture because that still goes back to what made this 18-year-old think that he was judge and jury, that he could go out ending lives and with this replacement theory. Who made him think that he was judge and jury? And same thing for other people. Why do you think you're judge and jury? Maybe I could be judge and jury. That's wrong too. But I mean, what makes you think that you can be judge and jury and not God?
Right. Right. And I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. And it's not that I'm saying everybody needs to mind their own business. That's not what I'm saying either. I mean, we're supposed to love our neighbor. And it was, and actually, this same scripture, Romans, what is it? Romans 15, I think it was. In this same scripture, um, it talks about, do for those who are weak, work for your neighbors. It was something that was read this morning when I was talking with Cassandra. Work for your neighbors, and don't do it for your own pleasure or so that you can puff up your own chest, but do it because it's going to make them stronger. It's going to edify them. It's going to lift them up. You know, um, but we've lost our way. One of the questions I wanted to ask tonight was, how many of us know our neighbors? I mean, our immediate neighbors. Do you know the name of your neighbors to your right, to the left, those that live across the street from you? Again, growing up, I know my parents, okay, my grandparents, they knew their neighbors. Everybody would wave, everybody would talk. You know, um, I just don't think it's the same. When I ask people that, they just don't seem to know their neighbors like they used to. They may know of them, they know enough of them to be able to gossip.
That's another thing. I mean, it's one thing to know them, but how do you know them? I can
Yeah,
say that when I was growing up, I knew my neighbors, and we my dad was really good about, helping out with the neighbors, in this, being in Connecticut. He would plow their driveways. He would never just, you know, plow our driveway. He was always doing like 3 or 4 driveways. I mean,
Right.
that's just how he was. And that's how people were. And look, we could actually say back then, we're going on vacation, keep an eye on the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't do that everywhere now. We
Yeah.
knew our neighbors, and we were a community, and
It was like one of those things that blew me away when I first went up to your parents' house when we first started dating, was
Mhm.
that your front door was open. And I'm like, well, what is going on here? How in the world do y'all just leave y'all door open? Or we would drive up in the middle of the night and the door is unlocked. I'm like, what? Why is this door unlocked? Because that ain't the kind of neighborhood I came from. You don't just leave your door open. And even nowadays, you'll open up the door, the screen door, and I'm like, is the door like?
King, you're going to keep talking, but guess what your wife forgot to do? Remember I told you how nervous I was and that this is stressful? I need you to take me out the show for a second because I forgot to plug up my laptop. It's getting ready to
Uh-oh.
die.
All right.
Take
Go
me
ahead.
out for a second, please.
All right. But again, what I was saying was, I didn't realize how many of us just don't know our neighbors like we once did, and our neighborhoods have changed. Um, it's, I don't know. I'm just always amazed at how much the world has changed in just a generation. It seems to me just a generation that the world has changed. When she comes back, I'm gonna ask another question as well that I was thinking about, because that goes back to the safety. How safe do we feel? And I would really love to get some feedback from everybody.
I'm
But
back.
I was listening to, or I might have been on Facebook, and it was talking about AFRAM, the African American Festival, that is well known here. It comes around, especially this is the first year I think in 2 years that it's coming back around, and um, it's like the AFRAM Festival. What's the other one that always comes up around our anniversary in July?
Art Fest?
The Art Fest.
Artscape, sorry.
Artscape. How many of us feel we can go to AFRAM this year? And not because of COVID. How
Oh.
safe will you feel?
That's an
You know?
excellent question.
And I'll admit, when I first thought about it, when I first heard about it, I was like, not me. I'm not going out there. You know? And I don't like operating in the spirit of fear. Now, I can try to make it seem like I'm just being cautious. I'm being wise, and things like that. But that becomes a real concern, and that was something I used to love to do. Go to AirFram, go to Artscape. We would go down there.
We would go down there in a heartbeat.
Used to love going to see like different bands. That's like the one place you could always see Frankie Beverly and Maze, and it would be like good music. I remember one year Patti LaBelle was there. All of that, you know. But really, do we feel safe enough to go partake in AFRAM? And it was something I wanted to ask you. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I don't think so. Not right now. But maybe, okay, I take that back. I don't want to live in fear, but I feel like there's a difference between living in fear and being smart and being sensible. So maybe I would go, and I just wouldn't go as late as we used to. Lots of times we would, the vendors and everything would be shutting down, and we would still be there. So maybe I would consider the time that I went. And to me,
But
that's
see,
not
the
that's
thing.
not living
It
in
doesn't
fear.
make a
That's being
difference.
smart. That's you're absolutely right. But
It does not make a
my
difference.
point is there's a difference between living in fear and being smart.
So
So
again, y'all, I would love to see y'all comments. Do y'all feel safe going out to these venues like AFRAM and Artscape, um, wine festivals? Don't look at us funny because we like to drink wine. We ain't drunkards, but we enjoy a glass of wine. So we'll go to a wine festival every now and then.
and we
Listen
went
to
to a
music and
lovely
stuff
wine
like that.
festival last fall. And
Yeah.
I mean, so let's talk about that. Are you feeling more comfortable with that wine festival because of the location of, where the wine festival was, the location, different? I mean, that was a pretty diverse crowd, if I remember correctly. It was
Yeah.
diverse,
I admit, keeping
but
it
you know
real,
where
I
I'm
do
getting.
feel more. I feel more comfortable with a diverse crowd than being around other elements sometimes. And just to keep it real, sometimes that means my own. Sometimes that so like I know I don't go to certain neighborhoods anymore, and I used to frequent them. I used to, but now I just won't go to certain neighborhoods because I know what the elements are there, and I know the danger that could abruptly just show up. You know, it could just erupt at any moment. So I don't know. Maybe I've lived in accounting too long now. Maybe I've gotten disassociated with it too long now. But there's just certain neighborhoods that I used to frequent that I would not go to now. And that's not true either, though, because when I do street ministry, those are the first places I want to go. Those are the first places I want to go. When I was, I mean, I would do prison ministry. I mean, we go to in the prisons and things like that. So at the same, I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if it's about me or if it's about me possibly having my family in danger. Because I think I know how to recognize when danger is approaching. When you've been around it enough, you kind of get a sense of it brewing. So I don't know if
But
it's
I'm wondering
necessarily
if that's
me.
what it is, because Mark, you are a man of stature. You are no little man. So, for to hear you talk about, and then there are some people that are like, okay, well, I don't care where I'm gonna go, I'm gonna deal with it, I'm gonna handle it, I ain't scared of nothing. But to hear you be transparent and keep it real, that I'm smart about where I go. I don't go everywhere that I used to go. I mean, that's saying something coming from a man of your stature, just and a man. Period. You're saying
Well, I
something.
think
You're keeping it real.
well, I think that has to do a little bit with wisdom. But like I said, when I think more about it, it's not some. If I'm not just going to go there just to be hanging out, but if I'm going there to witness, to reach the lost for Jesus Christ, if that's my mission, if that's where God is sending me, then that's where I'm gonna go, and I don't have a problem with doing that. It's just like going to China. China is a communist country. There's danger involved with going over there and things like that. But I didn't have a problem with doing that because I felt like that's someplace God would want me to be, and He directed me to be there. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I guess that's the difference, where I know that I'm doing something that has been ordained by God, and that I'm being covered while I'm doing the work of the Lord. Um, I don't have any issues. But when it comes to having others with me, like if it was you and I, or if it was you and I and our daughter and things like that, I'm a little more weary because it's not just me that's on the line, it's my family that's on the line, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
It makes perfect sense, and I've seen how you are protective and protective of me, even just trying to run to the grocery store at 9 o'clock at night. Like,
Oh, no, you're not.
really,
No, you're not. Mm-mm.
grocery store is literally, the next light.
Yeah, but still, there's not always nice elements at the grocery store, especially
That's
late at
true.
night,
Yeah, that's true.
especially right around the corner, but we ain't going to talk about that. And we don't live in a bad neighborhood, but in every neighborhood, you just
No,
got
we
this
we
one little
really don't.
pocket. You always got this one little pocket.
But that's the point. Every neighborhood still has its risks.
Yeah. And it's like they say, even though technically we don't live in Baltimore, we live right outside Baltimore, it's like they always say, in Baltimore, you're always 4 blocks away from either a good neighborhood or a bad neighborhood. Just drive another 4 blocks and you're going to see something different completely, you
Hmm.
know? But that's one of the things I like about Baltimore as well. It is diverse, and you do get a mixture of different things as well. Um, Nicole was saying she doesn't even really feel safe going to the gas station. You know,
Me too. She's
Yeah.
not the only one. I don't
And
like
that
to
kind
use
of,
a gas station at night.
yeah,
I don't.
yeah. And that kind of brought up memories of the DC shooter, you
Oh, the
know,
sniper.
the sniper. Yeah. And just being nervous being at the gas station. Uh, it's just so much we got to pray for, y'all. And it starts at that. We have to pray. And we can't think that our prayers don't change things. You know, prayer definitely does change. God hears us, especially when enough of us are praying about the same thing.
Hmm.
God will definitely hear our prayers. Um, and when we ask Him to intervene, I mean, when you think about when you read all the different Psalms, and David, excuse me, David and some of the other psalmists that wrote Psalms, when they asked God to intervene, He would intervene. But it was really about the condition of our heart, and we had to make sure that we are seeking His will, and that we have a heart of forgiveness, and that we have a heart for love for one another, and that we are concerned about our neighbor. And again, our neighbor isn't just our neighbor that physically lives next door, but anyone that we know is in need. So those people that are in Ukraine, and those who are across the world, all those martyrs in different countries and things like that. When we take the time and we adjust our heart and align our heart with God's heart and we pray, He'll answer our prayers. Especially when we pray corporately and we are praying on one accord. That's what gets His attention. We often hear, at least at Mount Pleasant, it's unity that will command the blessings. So when we become unified, um, God hears it and then He blesses us. And I think that's the first step we have to start really thinking about is a prayer. Does legislation have to change? Absolutely. Does man heart have to change? Absolutely. The thing is, we can help legislation, but we can't change man's heart. Only God can change a man's heart. Only God can do that. And certainly we can pray about that. Um, was there anything else before I did this one little last piece?
Well, I wanted to just. Are you going to do the
The
last little
video.
piece of
Uh
the
huh.
video?
Uh huh.
You know what? I was going to say some remarks about that. Well, no, I take it back because I wanted to kind of talk about. Um, was it Tony? I can't remember who asked the question about why about tragedies and why God lets tragedies happen. And while we do need to talk about that and we need to pray about that, like you said, King, I want to also recognize that God also still is in the miracle business. He is still in the miracle business. So while we spend a lot of time talking about the tragedies and what could be in people's hearts, there are times when God is still doing miracles and He's still doing wonderful things. And I think that's what you're getting ready to talk about,
Yeah.
because there were miracles in this next story. And what was really, I'll let you talk about it, but what really got me was the fact that this video that I don't know if you're showing the video, but this next story that we're getting ready to talk about came right after on the news, the 5 shootings. Same show. I want to say today's show was the show that I was watching this
Mm-hmm.
morning. And they really, really did a wonderful piece, extended piece on this next story where God was in the miracle business, and it warmed my heart, because how often do we say on the news, all you hear is negative, 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 and bad, 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 bad. But the Today Show did a wonderful job with this story, and it was so timely because it was right after all this violence. So
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna show y'all the video. Some of you may have already seen it. It was on. I do not own the rights to this video,
we
so
do not own the rights, but it was
um,
such a good story.
don't nobody come and hunt me down and block me or nothing like that. All right. Give me a second. Here we go.
It is the story that had you asking your friends this week. Did you hear about the guy who landed the plane? When the pilot of a small aircraft flying over South Florida lost consciousness, putting the plane into a nosedive, one of the passengers on board who had no flight experience jumped into action and calmly landed that plane. Now, the heroic passenger, Darren Harrison, is telling his story for the first time to Savannah Guthrie in a Today exclusive. NBC's Sam Brock has our Sunday focus from Palm Beach International Airport, where Harrison stuck that breathtaking landing. Sam, good morning.
Willie, good morning. Last Tuesday, Darren Harrison, who was a man who believed strongly in his faith, landed the airplane here against all practical odds. He had no flying experience, as you mentioned. His plane went off the radar at the worst possible time. Now he's speaking out.
For Darren Harrison, a career in home and business flooring sales, arguably should not have prepared him for this. Last week, the pilot flying Harrison and one other passenger back from a fishing trip in the Bahamas experienced a medical emergency and passed out. So the 39-year-old stepped up, helping move the pilot over and grabbing the controls with zero experience flying an aircraft. The burning question, as he speaks exclusively with Savannah, how did this go off without a hitch?
Everyone's been amazed at how calm you were. Did you feel calm?
I did. Somebody asked me the other day what my heart rate was, or what I thought my heart rate was when all that was going on. And I said, probably in the 90s. And they said, well, what about after it was all over? I said, it's probably about 160. About the time I stopped the plane, that's when it hit me. Yeah, I was pretty calm and collected the whole time because I knew it was a life or death situation. Either you do what you have to do to control the situation or you're going to die. And that's what I did.
There's no time to panic.
No, none.
Harrison says he had no choice. The husband and father-to-be, who's expecting a child with his wife Brittany this summer, had everything to live for. And his faith, he says, guided him through an ordeal that could have easily turned fatal. Air traffic controller Robert Morgan showing our Kerry Sanders what Harrison had to do just to access the controls.
They had to get on the controls and pull back the plane so that it would climb up out of the dive that it was in.
Then the plane disappeared from the airport's radar, and 10 seconds later,
He said, I'm on the ground. What do you want me to do now?
Did you say the passengers landed the airplane? That's correct. Oh my God, that's a great job.
Harrison also telling Savannah he previously really had nightmares over this exact scenario, a pilot becoming incapacitated midair. Willie?
Just amazing. You can hear on the air traffic communication how calm he was throughout that ordeal and stuck the landing. Sam, thank you very much. You can watch Savannah's full exclusive interview with Darren Harrison.
All right.
Tomorrow.
So I have to jump in because I think I sent you the shortened version.
Uh-huh.
And I watched the extended version, and the way that he talked about this, and they did show it, but I might have sent you the short clip. This man, first of all, okay, like he had no experience. He was a passenger. He didn't know what to do. But when they asked him, what enabled you to handle a life or death crisis situation? I'm not quoting, but a life or death crisis situation like that and stay focused and calm. He gave a one-word answer. He said, God. And he said, the hand of God was on that plane. And Savannah said, well, Savannah said, and on you. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. The only thing I can attribute it to is no other explanation. It was God. And they did show that, but it must have been in a different hour. But there were miracles all over that plane. The pilot had an aneurysm. He said he didn't feel well. And then they said, what do we need to do? I mean, he was non-responsive. He's there in the plane and the plane starts to dive. So it was 3 of them. And they had to get him. I want you to picture this, that little itsy bitsy plane. They had to get him out of the seat so they could land the plane, which is diving into the water. He said he saw water off his right, out of the right window. How did he know to pull the stick back and turn? He was like, I don't know. But the fact that he said it was God. I mean, it was just a miracle that was like the first miracle that they didn't crash into the water. That was miracle number one. And then miracle number two, him being able to land it. He landed without something like flaps. I mean, he was practicing after he pulled the plane up. He was going up and down, and he was practicing because he needed to learn how to control the plane. He's like, I got to land this thing, so I need to practice how the plane responds. I mean, it was just awesome, and he was calm. And another part of the story, the brother, I think his wife was expecting. They said his wife's sister last year was pregnant and lost her husband while pregnant. And he actually said, I'm not going to die today. I'm not going to do that to my wife. I'm not going to die today. And he was a man of faith. Now, you didn't see it in that clip, but if you go to the Today Show and watch the whole thing, it'll bless you. And that just really, I mean, I get chills just talking about it, because we're talking about violence, but there is still good that's out there, and God is still in the miracle business. And I give kudos to the Today Show, because it's exclusive, for showing that.
Yeah.
Because I saw it on TV. I'm sorry it wasn't on the clip that I sent you.
Well, I mean, just what I saw, and I saw that there was more to it, but just for the sake of time, I didn't want to, or couldn't really show the entire story. But once I heard him say even the reporter say it was because of his faith, it just goes to show that, yeah, you're saying God is in a miracle business, but I'm just saying God is ever present. He's still present, and he still intervenes, and we can trust him to intervene no matter what. We can trust him if we ask him, and he sees that our heart is real. He will step in. He will answer our prayers. And yeah, we start off thinking about violence, and me saying, how concerned I am about this spirit of violence and spirit of evil that seems to sometimes overrun our country. But as bad as that spirit is, the Holy Spirit is greater than any other spirit, and it will not be overcome. And we can rely on that. And when Felicia mentioned the story to me, and ending on a positive, I do want us to always remember, as dark as it seems to get at times, we are still the light. And he left us here to be the light. So we need to continue to represent God, represent Christ while we're here, and continue to be the light of the world, for the world that is like just slipping more and more into darkness. We have to keep speaking life and light. And we need to seek out stories like this. We need to seek out stories that will encourage others, that'll lift others up, that remind us that the world isn't all bad, that God is still in it, that his spirit is still in it, and that there's still a lot of good.
There's hope.
There's always going to be hope.
And that's what really made me enjoy this story. And I know it wasn't the last story. It was, like I said, it was right after all the headlines about the shootings. I want to say it was right after. So it really, really hit home. I was like, thank you, because people need hope in this dark world. They need hope. And that was just awesome. It was awesome. I know they showed that story. I know I saw it at least twice this morning. So they showed it repeatedly, but
Good.
it was just awesome. And people need hope. And that's where we are now.
No, people need God. People need Jesus. When you got Jesus, if you don't have Jesus, that's where your hope comes from.
Your hope your hope should be in God. Yes.
So if you don't know Jesus, let's talk about that. Let's have a conversation about that. Because otherwise, the type of hope we're talking about is assured. The type of hope the world talks about is you're hopeful, but it ain't going to happen. It may not happen.
The hope that keeps you, because life happens and tragedies happen. Mark and I know a little something about that, but it's the hope that keeps you. It's God that keeps you. And yes, you may even stumble and you may even fall down, but you get back up. And God, it's all we can say. And we can say that from experience. It was nothing but God that kept us and even brought us to this day so that we can encourage other people. It was no one but God.
Absolutely.
So we are witnesses, and you just ask us. We'll tell you.
Yeah, yeah. God is great, and God is still, like you said, in the miracle business, and we encourage you to get to know Him better if you don't know Him at all. We encourage you to invite Him into your heart, into your life, so that you can have the type of hope that we're talking about.
Amen.
All right. Well, we're past our time.
Because you talk so much.
I was going to say you do too much talking.
Blame me. Oh my gosh, you did most. I sat here and listened and said, I'm gonna let you talk.
Yeah, whatever. So again, thank you all so much helping me just recognize the 100th episode. I hope that you guys will hang around a little bit more, share it with others. I don't say it every time, but if you have not done so, please follow the page. Please share with others. Invite others to watch with you. Share it on your page so that maybe some of your friends will see it and wonder what's going on. That's how we'll have better conversations in the future. And the more diverse our audience, the better the conversations will be, and we'll have more insight into how people think and be able to share even more. I do thank you all so much. As always, I love you. I know Felicia loves you. We do appreciate all that you've done. Thank you so much for all the support. And I look forward to seeing you all again next Monday. I'm gonna show you the show opener again before we end the show with the outro. But again, thank you so much to everybody over the past 3 years, or the past 2 years, now going into the 3 years, for what you've done. I look forward to being with y'all again real soon. Be blessed.
Love y'all.